He was taken without ceremony, without charges, without a destination, moved through layers of silence until the world narrowed into concrete darkness and regulated breathing. The prison did not have a name, because names create records, and records create accountability, which the designers of this place deliberately avoided. It existed outside maps and laws, operated by the Central Intelligence Agency, justified by fear, and maintained through routines engineered to erase identity slowly and efficiently. Every day followed an identical structure, because predictability breaks resistance faster than violence when time itself becomes indistinguishable from confinement. Lights never fully turned off, because darkness invites sleep, and sleep invites dreams, and dreams remind prisoners they once belonged somewhere else. He learned early that pain was not the objective, but confusion, because confusion dissolves certainty, and certainty is the foundation of defiance. Interrogations arrived without warning, not to extract information, but to condition obedience through repetition, contradiction, and psychological erosion. Questions looped endlessly, shifting details subtly, forcing the mind to doubt its own memory, its own logic, its own internal narration. He realized escape would never involve doors, guards, or tunnels, because the real prison was cognitive, reinforced through habits designed to feel permanent. Weeks blended into months, measured only by changes in body weight, voice strain, and the gradual disappearance of emotional responses. He began observing patterns not to plan escape, but to remain sane, cataloging routines like an archivist, preserving fragments of reality. The guards changed shifts at mathematically precise intervals, not for efficiency, but to ensure prisoners could never form relationships or predict individuals. Food arrived flavorless and nutritionally sufficient, because deprivation that does not kill still weakens the will to imagine alternatives. He noticed the facility relied heavily on compliance automation, trusting procedures to replace judgment, believing humans followed scripts better than instincts. That belief became his opening. He began complying perfectly, not submissively, but consistently, removing every signal of resistance from behavioral monitoring systems. Compliance reduced scrutiny, because attention is a scarce resource, even inside a place designed to watch everything. The prison categorized prisoners constantly, updating risk profiles that influenced restraint levels, interrogation, frequency, and isolation protocols. He watched his profile change gradually, drifting from volatile to stable, from unpredictable to manageable, from threat to administrative burden. No one celebrated this shift, because no one noticed it happening. He trained his mind to slow reactions, flatten expressions, and regulate breathing, becoming indistinguishable from the statistical average prisoner. Average prisoners are not feared. The prison depended on fear. Maintenance routines fascinated him most, because they followed rigid schedules that valued procedural completion over contextual awareness. Technicians entered with checklists, not curiosity, trusting systems that told them where danger existed and where it did not. He memorized sounds, vibrations, and durations, constructing an internal map from sensory fragments that bypassed surveillance entirely. Escape, he realized, would occur during normalcy, not disruption, because disruption activates defenses while normalcy lulls them. The prison trusted its isolation so completely that it underestimated entropy, the gradual decay of assumptions over time. During one maintenance cycle, a protocol mismatch occurred, insignificant on paper, invisible in reports, but tangible in practice. A door remained unlocked for exactly 37 seconds longer than standard, because two systems disagreed silently. He did not move. He waited. The system corrected itself, logged nothing unusual, and reinforced its own confidence. Weeks later, the same mismatch reappeared. This time, he shifted his position slightly, testing whether deviation triggered alerts. It did not. The prison had decided he was safe. He repeated the process across multiple cycles, never accelerating, never deviating sharply enough to generate anomalies. Escape emerged not as an action, but as a gradual repositioning within tolerated boundaries. On the day it happened, nothing dramatic occurred, no alarm sounded, no guards shouted, no chase followed. He simply occupied a space the system believed should be empty, during a moment it believed irrelevant. By the time humans noticed, the system had already logged compliance, not absence. Outside, the world felt unreal, because freedom after absolute control does not feel liberating immediately, only disorienting. He did not run. Running attracts narratives. He walked until the environment normalized, until uncertainty shifted from threat to possibility. The prison did not pursue him publicly, because pursuit would acknowledge failure, and failure contradicts the mythology sustaining such places. Internally, reviews occurred, procedures rewritten, safeguards added, none addressing the core flaw. They believed the escape resulted from technical oversight, not conceptual arrogance. He disappeared into ordinary life, carrying no evidence, no manifesto, no intention of exposure. Exposure invites denial. Silence forces uncertainty. Years later, the prison still exists, modified, reinforced, more complex, and therefore more fragile than before. His escape changed nothing immediately, which made it more dangerous than a scandal ever could, because someone, somewhere, would eventually notice the same gap, and next time the system might not realize what escaped until far too late. He understood the ending would never involve justice or closure, because systems built in secrecy rarely conclude stories. They simply continue operating with slightly adjusted assumptions. He avoided interviews, books, and shadows of fame, knowing attention would convert survival into spectacle, and spectacle into convenient dismissal. Freedom required discipline, not celebration, because careless relief often reveals patterns more loudly than chains ever did. He rebuilt a life deliberately boring, indistinguishable from millions of others, where predictability functioned as camouflage rather than confinement. The prison never officially lost him, because admitting loss would require admitting limits, and limits undermine the authority such institutions depend upon. Internally, the escape became an abstract lesson, stripped of humanity, reduced to diagrams, patches, and procedural updates circulated without context. What terrified him most was not what he endured, but how his Elliot could repeat, unchanged, justified again by different fears. He accepted that survival was not victory, only responsibility, because knowing the truth without exposing it carried its own quiet weight. Somewhere beyond maps and oversight, the prison still breathes, confident, secure, unaware that certainty itself remains its most reliable weakness. And the man who escaped understands the story never truly ended. It simply moved outside the walls, where silence protects it best.